For 15 years, I have held a great reputation for virtue as the Marchioness. Watching Song Zhuo drink the last bowl of sterilization potion, I contentedly proposed a divorce. He laughed at me. Zhao, you are merely a peasant girl. Without me, you would only spend a lifetime wandering in destitution. So he punished me by sending me to Qingxi Temple for a 10-day retreat. Song Zhuo always makes me submit without drawing blood. Gazing at his back as he stormed off, I gently stroked the divorce letter in my sleeve. On it, the seal of the Marquise's manor had already been stamped. From now on, the sky is high and waters long, each to our own spring. The day I brought up the divorce happened to be precisely when the Marquis Yingyuan's manor was at its most glorious. Song Zhuo had just obtained the iron certificate. Mi son Song Yan was selected as the Crown Prince's study companion. The winding stream banquet I helped noble consort Liang organize was also about to begin. Song Zhuo's hem flowed like clouds, and he entered the room carrying the spring breeze of success. As usual, I brought out the medicinal tea I had prepared with my own hands. He slowly drank it all and frowned, his white jade-like fingers setting down the celadon bowl. The medicine today seems exceptionally bitter. This was the last bowl of the sterilization draft in 7 years, so the potency was a bit stronger. The effects have built up for 7 years. In this lifetime, Song Zhuo is cut off from having heirs. I can also leave with peace of mind. I said, Song Zhuo, let's get a divorce. Song Zhuo's expression was faint as distant mountains, his gaze falling lightly upon me. Don't tell me you think that just because of the new female household regulations, you can establish yourself out there. Some time ago, in order to expand tax revenue, His Majesty permitted the establishment of female households. From now on, women can establish their own households and pay taxes, no longer needing to rely on fathers, husbands, or sons. I calmly met his gaze. Yes, he sat upright before me, knuckles lightly tapping the desk, smiling. Aside from drinking tea and hosting banquets with those women, you don't even know how to sing a tune like Liuer. How will you support yourself? And how will you pay your own taxes? His clear, melodious voice was like a late snowfall, freezing my entire body in frost. Zhao, without me, you have nothing. You would only spend your life wandering destitute. Have you forgotten going hungry in the past? Forgotten being sold? Forgotten being driven out of the manor 7 years ago? How could I dare forget? My chronic cough was contracted on that very snowy night. My son, Song Yan, was also forcibly sent to the old madam at that time. Song Zhuo unhurriedly rubbed his white jade thumb ring, waiting for me to speak up and submit to him as usual. I lowered my eyes and remained silent. He gathered his robes, stood up, and leisurely strolled away. I originally didn't intend to hold it against you for selling off Liuer, but bringing up divorce today is truly overstepping bounds. He glanced sideways at me, his voice faint and cold. Madam, pack your things. Go to Qingxi Temple tomorrow for 10 days of spiritual cultivation. It should clear your mind so you can think things through. I smiled. Song Zhuo is always like this, maintaining an air of lofty elegance. He disciplines me without ever drawing blood. Watching his graceful, drifting figure, I gently stroked the divorce papers inside my sleeve. On them, the seal of the Marquis Manor had already been stamped. I will always remember that New Year's Eve 7 years ago. The vast night filled the sky, and fluffy snow fell in flurries. Big red lanterns hung high before the Marquis Manor, and brilliant fireworks bloomed overhead, while I stood alone and barefoot in the snow piled up before the manor gates. My nightgown, thin as a cicada's wings, was filled with the biting wind, freezing me until I trembled and ached. I had no money to stay in an inn, no travel papers to leave the city, and a woman certainly couldn't set up a household on her own. I could only suffer as the cold severely damaged my lungs, watching helplessly as my son was sent away. Yet when people in the capital speak of me, they start by saying, I am lucky, a mere peasant girl who used a debt of gratitude to become a Marchioness. Then they say I am virtuous, turning patience into gold, knowing when to advance and retreat. Our 15 years. I've risen at the hour of yin and slept at the hour of hai, from the estate's ancestral worship down to the daily medicinal teas. I've had to attend to everything personally. I maneuvered skillfully among the noble ladies, winning the favor of noble consort Liang. I was neither jealous nor envious. I made proper arrangements for the dozen or so concubines in the backyard. Even so, the pearl hairpins, silks, and decorative knick-knacks the nobles rewarded me with were all locked in the storeroom by my mother-in-law. Li never had any spare money to my name, and even the servants rarely respected me. Li often lectured me in public, just to show off how strictly she managed the household. More importantly, I was forced to live apart from my son. Song Yin Everyone says, Song Zhuo is refined and Li is tolerant, and that they've never mistreated me, but the way they ground me down was through these subtle, complicated little things. Day after day, it wore down my spirit and exhausted my will. The lamp wick popped with a crackle. In the bronze mirror, a face still fair enough for 30, the gold earrings by my cheeks swaying in the flickering candlelight. I smiled. Tears suddenly fell, but my gaze was calm, steady, and sharp. But it no longer matters. That divorce paper has already been sent to the magistrate's office. Nanny Li was already waiting for me by the carriage at the side gate. She snatched the money pouch from Yur's waist, weighed it in her hand. Madam, you don't need to bring so much silver. For 15 years, she had long been accustomed to this. Nanny Li snorted smugly and said, I knew long ago that you were a ruthless one, holding a grudge because the Marquis kicked you out of the manor 7 years ago. So you sold Liur, didn't you? But let me tell you, our cousin Miss Concubine Li Qinger is no ordinary person. The manor doctor examined her last night. She is with child. Pregnant, I asked back in surprise. Nanny Li smiled, her face all wrinkled up. That is right. So you just do a good job praying and fasting for the Marquis Manor's future new addition, and help our old madam balance the books for the money she has lent out. I was stunned for a moment. She suddenly gave Nanny Li a graceful smile. You are right, Nanny. Then I'll trouble you to take extra care of Concubine Li with this money. 7 years of sterilization medicine. There absolutely wouldn't be such an oversight. I didn't expect that just as we're about to divorce, I'd still get to see a good show. I helped Yor onto the carriage. Just then, I happened to run into Song Yan, who was about to ride into the palace. The boy was dressed in light blue riding gear, and on his handsome 14-year-old face, one could glimpse a maturity that didn't match his age. He lightly pulled on the reins and called out faintly. I suddenly remembered that child who always loved to nestle in my arms and throw tantrums for candy. Ever since he was taken to the old madam's place at the age of 7, he has never smiled at me. The morning light arrived at just the right moment, spilling a little into my eyes. My vision gradually blurred. The air had no choice either. You're softly comforted. I closed my eyes and said nothing. There is no such thing as having no choice in this world. It is merely a choice made after weighing the pros and cons. Just like how Song Zhuo threatened suicide to marry me back then, full of sincerity, regarding me as a bright pearl. Later on, didn't the bright pearl turn into a fisheye just the same? Everyone assumes that I only managed to marry into the Marquise's manor back then, by leveraging a debt of gratitude. What is laughable is that Song Zhuo risked death to insist on marrying me. I first met him in the dead of winter. Song Zhuo was lying in my snow-covered herb garden. On his last breath, back then, the Yingyuan Marquise's family fled to the south to save the late emperor. Back then, I planned to take the whole family to meet the king of hell come spring. I only saved him to accumulate merit for the underworld. Song Zhuo wasn't used to the bran porridge I fed him and spat it out. I immediately slapped him. Your life belongs to me, yet you dare waste my food. His pitch-black eyes reddened, and he forced a sentence through his lips. Song Zhuo, oh Song Zhuo, to have fallen so low. That day, the sky was heavy with snow. Song Zhuo's face was like cold jade, his figure like bamboo and pine, his expression hauntingly beautiful and shattered. In the end, I still softened my voice and urged, what is so hard about chaff? On spring comes, I'll be sold to a 60-year-old man as a concubine, to pay for my little brother's tuition. This chaff you turn your nose up at. It is the money I sold my body for. Song Zhuo's eyelashes fluttered, remained silent for a long time, long enough that snow fell outside the window. Only then did the bony hand take the bowl, chewing down the chaff mouthful by mouthful. Later, in the dead of winter, the herbs were hard to keep alive, so Dad had me stay in the thatched hut in the herb garden to keep watch. Whenever I finished tending to the herbs with my hands covered in chilblains, Song Zhuo would apply medicine for me. Then, by the light of the stove fire, she read me the poetry books little brother didn't want, teaching me to read and write. Before I got married, I finally ground the poisonous herbs I'd been saving for a long time into powder. I planned to boil myself into that pot of brown sugar water Mom is making to celebrate my upcoming marriage. I want the king of hell to come settle the debts of gratitude for my family. I refuse to be the only one in misery. But Song Zhuo ran away with me. He traded his ancestral jade pendant for dry rations and horses. Ah, Ying, I'll take you away. I'll take you to see mid-spring in Jiangyan. I'll let you be a free and carefree person. That day in the mountains, there was clearly still frost that refused to fade. Yet, in the brilliant dawn, I saw clouds and mountains stretching far, and spring flowers in full bloom. Later, a new emperor ascended the throne, and the Yingyuan Marquise's family was exonerated. Lady Li had people forcibly drag me away. Song Zhuo was so frantic his eyes looked ready to split. He drew a knife and pressed it against his neck. Lady Li shouted, "You, the dignified heir of a marquise's manor, truly intend to marry a village woman? Mother, Zhao Ying is my wife." As he spoke, the blade went 2 inches deeper, and beads of blood oozed out. Song Zhuo's face was pale, yet he smiled gently at me. I said, "I want you to be free and at ease." Tears streamed down in an instant. I was a burden to father and mother, and the tuition for little brother's future. Only Song Zhuo treated me like a human being, cherishing and treasuring me. He planted a patch of spring in my desolate life. The spring grass was lush, growing towards the sun. In this life, I am willing to love him as I love a god. It is just that later. Such a wonderful Song Zhuo became an ordinary husband of this world. He made me live under the four-cornered sky of the Marquise's manor for 15 years, no longer calling me a Ying. He said, "Lady Zhao, without me, you have nothing, and would only wander destitute for a lifetime." Nanny Li's daughter, Qingru, accompanied me to Qingqi Temple. She specifically instructed the novice monk. The madam must worship the Buddha sincerely. There is no need for extravagance. The implication was to give me the worst room and the worst food. I've long grown accustomed to this kind of dignified lesson. Song Zhuo prides himself on being refined. He never scolds or uses corporal punishment. What he likes best is using trivial little things to make me submissive and admit my faults. The little novice monk led us into a courtyard that looked dilapidated from the outside. Pushing open the door, it was brightly lit. Gilded candlesticks, Nanmu tables and chairs, brocade quilts, everything was there. There was still a chill in the early spring air. On the chaise longue, there was even a carved hot water warmer, steaming with heat. Qingru hurriedly said, "Master, have you made a mistake? Our madam is here for a spiritual retreat. How could she stay in such a nice place? Master, hurry and change it to the usual room." The novice monk just kept his head down and didn't answer. I signaled with my eyes. Yor then clamped her mouth shut and dragged her into the side room. Loud slaps accompanied by weeping rang out in the small courtyard from time to time. Ever since Yor came to serve me 7 years ago, I had the estate guards teach her martial arts. Ordinary servant boys and old maids are no match for her, let alone a mere servant girl. Since we're getting a divorce anyway, I don't want to hold back anymore. The novice monk bowed, closed the door, and left. Over the years, I have come to the temple to give alms on behalf of the Marquis Manor. The donations made whenever I accompanied noble consort Liang here were enough to recast a golden statue. Just let the abbot know, and he'll know what to do. I grabbed the hot water bottle and leaned lazily back on the couch. The pain in my lungs caused by that drafty carriage just now instantly eased up. The lingering scent of sandalwood filled my nose. I'll just stay peacefully in the temple, waiting for the government office to submit the divorce from the Marquise's manor to the emperor for approval. Those 15 years of being nitpicked and tormented are finally coming to an end. I woke up in the bright midday sun, feeling totally refreshed. All these years in the Marquis Yingyuan's manor, I've been like a spinning top, never resting once. I deliberately pinned on an 8 treasures pearl hairpin, then went to the small Buddhist hall to have tea with Lady He, the wife of the Duke of Ningguo, who had come to offer prayers. We called it having tea. But really, I was helping noble consort Liang conduct some business. The Liang clan of Guizhou has vast holdings. In recent years, they've made a killing on medicinal herbs due to the plagues. But the noble consort is the emperor's wife, and the Liangs of Guizhou are imperial in laws. So it fell to me to conduct business privately, using the cover of the Marquis Yingyuan's household. It was both to shield the noble consort from calamity and to make money for myself. When Mrs. He saw the 8 treasure pearl hairpin in my bun, she started making snide, envious remarks. Even though you were born a peasant, madam, and aren't much younger than me, the Marquis was willing to give you such a fine hairpin. It is rare to see coral this big. At the mention of Song Zhuo, my heart still stirred. I smiled. Mrs. He, I helped the Marquis make some money, so he rewarded me with this. The fine lines at the corners of Madame He's eyes all smoothed out. I pushed the contract in front of her and said, Danshan, harvest next month, 100,000 gold. The noble consort's floating wine cup banquet is coming up, and you and the Duke will be able to sit right by His Majesty. Madame He immediately sent someone to fetch her seal and issued the silver bills. The Duke of Ning's influence has been weak for years. Being able to gain some face before the Emperor now is truly hard to come by. After Madame He left, Yer covered her mouth and giggled. Mistress, you really can endure. You just didn't mention that you bought this pearl hairpin yourself. I smiled. Madame He loves to compare the most. I have to hit her sore spot to pull this off. From being despised by the noble ladies of the capital to being fawned over, only I know how much I've put into this. I took a 10% cut from the banknotes and sent someone on a fast horse to deliver the rest to the Liang family bank. That night, I was flicking the abacus beads, tallying banknotes and land deeds. We heard Yer push the door open and come in, and we spoke in unison. The Marquise's manor sent word. The concubine has just conceived, so Madame must copy the scriptures 100 times to pray for blessings. Porridge and water in the temple will suffice to cleanse the heart. We've got 10,000 taels now. The good days are yet to come. We looked at each other for quite a while, burst out laughing with a PFFT. Song Zhuo was wrong. Since I can hold a place beside the noble consort, how could I not have paved a way out? I've been idle for 5 days. Today is sunny and mild, with the sky as blue as if it had been washed. But Song Zhuo came. He was wearing a lilac robe, standing tall before me like green bamboo after snow-cold, noble and imposing. Upon seeing me, a flash of stunned appreciation suddenly swept through his icy eyes. I wasn't dressed like the lady of a noble house. A single jade hairpin held my hair up, and I wore a light water blue skirt with flowing patterns, simple, elegant, and practical. Song Zhuo revealed a rare hint of a soft smile. Did you know I was coming? So you dressed up with such unique elegance? It is different from your usual dignified manner. It looks a bit like back in the herb garden. I didn't answer. Song Zhuo's smile vanished in an instant, and he shook the scriptures in his hand. It is just that it has been 15 years. How is your handwriting still so unpresentable? I glanced at him indifferently. These were all copied day and night by Qingru. They are indeed somewhat lacking, but he taught me how to write with his own hands. Yet, he doesn't remember. Seeing my cold expression, Song Zhuo slightly furrowed his brows. You don't need to worry about the winding stream banquet in 5 days. The noble consort's decree was issued to the Marquis of Yingyuan's manor, so let Qing'er go in our stead and show her face before the emperor. He lowered his eyelids halfway, his voice clear and resonant. You must know, without me, you have nothing. I looked up at him, the earrings by my cheeks swaying gently. So, the punishment of sending me to Qingxi Temple was the first step. Stripping me of that tiny bit of power was the second step. Song Zhuo never shows his hand, adding pressure layer by layer, wanting me to bow my head and submit. In his eyes, apart from flattering noble consorts and ladies at banquets, I am good for nothing. I turned to leave. Song Zhuo said lightly, "Zhao Shi, if not for my partiality, do you know what kind of situation you would be in? Li Qingzhi is a noble concubine from Mother's Yuzhou Li clan. If she gives birth to a son, Mother will definitely make me cast you aside. And if her son becomes the legitimate heir, it will threaten Song Yan's position. Legitimate son, he can never have children again. So where would a legitimate son come from?" I gave him a captivating smile against the bright spring light. Song Zhuo's distant gaze flickered slightly, appearing somewhat pleased. A smile slowly curled on his lips. "Now that you know you were wrong, you actually seem as lively as you used to be." I couldn't listen to a word of his self-absorbed reminiscing, just looked at Song Zhuo like he was a joke, then turned around and left. Song Zhuo's voice came coldly from behind. "Zhao Shi, do you really want to be left with nothing?" He closed the door coldly and decisively. Inside the room, Yuer was busy working in front of the yellow pearwood desk. On the desk, a road guide, stacks of land deeds, field deeds, and silver bills were laid out. How could I have nothing just waiting for that divorce paper? And I'll be the head of my own household. With land, money, and a backer. Me respect and love for Song Zhuo turned to ashes in the 8th year after marrying into the Marquise's manor. Before that, I devoted myself heart and soul, and did so gladly. On the surface, Lady Li gave me the title of a distant cousin to marry into the Marquise's manor, but my true identity was gossip that every noble in the capital knew about. I moved into the Marquise's manor, following every rule step by step, contentedly revolving around Song Zhuo. Song Zhuo used to be good to me. He took me around to learn the paths of the manor over and over, often urged my mother-in-law not to be too strict, and patiently taught me about etiquette. But as our interactions with noble families and the imperial palace increased, Song Zhuo reverted to his original self, an elegant, upright, soft-spoken, and dignified noble scion. His gaze upon me became increasingly scrutinizing, occasionally filled with dissatisfaction. The first time I entered the palace for the mid-autumn banquet, noble consort Liang singled me out to receive a reward. Me face flushed red as I walked out from the row of wives. I nearly fell, and performed a wanfu curtsy in a panic. It made the madams and young ladies in the whole room snicker softly. The look in Song Zhuo's eyes finally turned from dissatisfaction to deep disgust. By marrying me, Song Zhuo had already lost the family support that a marriage alliance would have brought. My unpresentable ways made him a laughingstock among the noble families. That night, Song Zhuo walked very fast ahead of me. His misty blue official robes snapped in the wind, and the jade pendants at his waist clinked. On the bluestone-paved palace path, the octagonal lanterns looked like scattered stars, illuminating his figure as he walked further and further away. No matter how I chased or shouted, he never once looked back at me. It was as if there was a wall between us. I finally understood why storytellers only tell the story up until the lovers get married. Once married, there is usually not much love left. The bluestone path that night seemed so long. Long enough that by the time I reached the end, my tears had dried. I came from the countryside, so I always thought about things in a simple, straightforward way. I thought that as long as I was a good Marchioness, Song Zhuo would be satisfied with me. I exerted myself to the utmost thick-skinnedly, trying to please Madame Li. I begged her to teach me etiquette, begged her to hire a tutor to teach me reading and writing, and begged her to take me to socialize with the noble ladies of the capital. I studied and practiced calligraphy day and night, straining my eyes by the candlelight. When Madame Li fell ill, I slept in the side room ready to serve her at any moment. I went to great lengths to get people to chase and beat Duke Ning's mistress, just so I could accompany Lady He to the noble consort's chrysanthemum banquet. Hearing that the noble consort's daughter needed herbal cuisine for her health, I personally cooked herbal meals every day, just to win a bit of favor from the princess. In those years, I never dared to slack off for a single day. Even when noble families sent over highborn concubines, I endured the stifling pain in my heart and settled them properly in the marquise's manner, because mother-in-law said that the mistress of a noble house must have the capacity for tolerance and understand social etiquette. Perhaps these are the rules for the elite. I didn't understand, but I learned gradually. I finally earned a good reputation. One day, I held the hairpin bestowed by noble consort Liang and went before Song Zhuo. Song Zhuo, however, asked, "Zhao, you copy the noble lady's currying favor before the noble consort. Don't you feel a bit like Dongxi imitating a frown?" Dongxi imitating a frown. I hadn't learned this phrase yet, but it sounded very elegant. I said with a beaming smile, "Song Lang, I just want to help you." He gave a light laugh. Thinking back now, that must have been a laugh of bone-deep contempt. In the 8th year, I helped the noble consort arrange banquets and palace trifles, stirring up muddy waters among the noble ladies. Though I couldn't compare to those women of high birth, I still had some standing among the noble families. Song Zhuo swapped out his favored concubines, one after another, and he no longer coaxed me with that line. "They can't compare to the hardships we shared." The day he was promoted to the 5th rank, I specially put on a cloud shawl and adorned my hair with pearls and gems, carrying Song Yin to the front of the manor to welcome him with great joy. Seeing him come, I smiled and said, "The noble consort mentioned a few days ago that His Majesty had already made a decision regarding my husband's new post. It turned out to be true. That is wonderful." Song Zhuo glanced over lightly, bearing the imposing pressure of a superior. In the elegant smile on her lips, there was a sarcasm so thick it couldn't be wiped away. "You don't actually think this promotion was due to noble consort Liang's recommendation? The Yingyuan Marquis Manor can assist the Liang clan of Kuizhou, but it has nothing to do with you." I instinctively covered the ears of Song Yan in my arms. The young Song Yan looked at me blankly. Song Zhuo's voice was so cold it was chilling. "Why do you have to be as slick, submissive, and pretentious as all the women in the capital?" My heart suddenly tightened in pain. I could only watch numbly as he walked away, motionless. Otherwise, the tears would fall in an undignified manner. "All these years? Haven't I done well enough?" "Mother." Song Yan looked at me with open eyes, his small hand brushing away the tears at the corner of my eyes. I smiled at him. "It doesn't matter. Song Zhuo and I were born worlds apart. It is normal that he is dissatisfied. Just as long as he treats me like a human being and lets me raise Song Yan properly, that is enough." Later, I punished concubine Liu, and Song Zhuo kicked me out of the Marquis Manor, New Year's Eve in the deep winter of the 12th month. I wore a nightgown thin as a cicada's wing, standing barefoot in the deep snow before the door. Winter in the capital was very cold, and the winter night was even colder, cutting like a knife. The freezing wind nearly tore through every inch of my skin, and my joints hurt as if they were being pried open. Faint sounds of rowdy laughter drifted from inside the Marquise's manor. The official road was completely deserted, leaving only the vast, boundless night. I stood there, at a loss. Where could I go? There was nowhere to go. I have no maiden family to rely on, no silver for an inn, nor a travel pass to leave the city. In Dasheng, women certainly cannot establish their own households. My face was blown numb by the wind, my whole body shaking like a sieve. With every breath, the cold wind poured into my lungs, stinging in waves. Bang! A loud noise, resplendent, colorful fireworks bloomed from the Marquise's manor into the night sky. Bright as day, dazzling as a rainbow. I remember the teacher said, "This is fiery trees and silver flowers lighting up the nightless sky, dancing fireworks welcoming the new year." Dazzling fireworks, a brand new year, and my trembling body. Tears flow recklessly. The so-called splendor and wealth of the Yingyuan Marquis Manor, the so-called Song Zhuo, who would take me to see the world. Ultimately, it was just a fleeting dream. I am just an insignificant firefly between heaven and earth. A single lonely light, standing all alone, with no one to rely on. Deep in the night, the fluffy snow falls with a soft rustle. The mansion gates finally opened. Song Zhuo was loosely draped in a fox fur cloak, his cheeks flushed with a faint drunken blush, his whole body filled with the languor of drinking on New Year's Eve. Several maids crowded around him, holding hot water bottles for him and carrying lanterns. It was extraordinarily lively. A world of difference from me, curled up helplessly in the corner. Look of smugness surfaced in Song Zhuo's eyes. Yet his voice was gentle as water. Zhao Shi, if you are obedient, you will be the Marchioness, and you can enjoy wealth and glory for a lifetime. That patch of lush spring grass in the depths of my heart finally withered into ash. I trembled as I held onto the wall and stood up. He raised his eyebrows slightly. You are so reckless. It is better to send Songyan to be raised at mother's knees. From the moment Songyan fell wailing from my belly, every bite he ate, every word he learned, every illness he suffered, I was there. Yet now he is to be given to Li Shi to raise. But aside from my teeth chattering loudly, and a heavy pain throughout my body, I couldn't utter a sound. In the end, I stumbled as I followed him. Song Zhuo finally nodded with satisfaction. He was very satisfied with my obedience, satisfied with my reverence for him as if he were a god. I smiled. What god? Song Zhuo is just a heartless, conceited, despicable, and ordinary man. To him, I am Zhao Shi, a wife, a thing. He hasn't called my name for many years, nor has he ever treated me as a human being. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I, Zhao Ying, accept my defeat. Li Shi came to the temple to see me. Her luxurious skirt trailed on the ground as she circled me, looking me up and down. After all, you come from a coarse background and your body is tough. To think you still look this rosy even after eating vegetarian and fasting. She was smug and imperious. My son is generous. The Marquis wants to eat that medicinal 8 treasure duck with ginkgo you make, and also wants the calming incense, so he allows you to go back. I shook my head. Lady Li raised her eyebrows. Locked up in the temple for penance, yet you still put on airs. I smiled. That medicinal dish was indeed made by Cook Leo, and the medicinal incense was also prepared by the estate doctor. Zhao Shi, is your head muddled? This is my son giving you a way out. Madame Li's sharp fingernails came at me, but I dodged them. Inheriting the title, the iron certificate, my good grandson Song Yan being selected by the crown prince as a study companion. What a wonderful life, I asked. This good life. What does it have to do with me, Zhao Ying, in the slightest? How did you learn your feminine virtues? Her voice instantly turned shrill. A woman regards her husband as her heaven, and her son as her heaven. If they are doing well, then you are doing well. I looked at Madame Li, whose face was already weathered by wind and frost. Her name is Li Rua, the legitimate daughter of the Li clan in Yuzhou. Yuzhou helped my father-in-law win the war, and only then was the title of Marquis Yingyuan conferred. Clearly, she is my father-in-law's benefactor. Clearly, it was because she raised Song Zhuo by her side that he became the legitimate son and inherited the title. Yet she says her husband and son are her whole world. Li Rua saw I didn't answer, raised a brow and smiled. If you can't be the Marchioness, all your hard work these years will go down the drain. Are you willing to accept that? I smiled. She is right. These 15 years of mine were comparable to slaving away at the books in the bitter cold. But I stopped fussing over all that a long time ago. People should look forward. The capital that has already been lost need not be included in the next round of calculations. So, what is there to be unwilling about? After being kicked out 7 years ago, I stopped personally worrying about his meals and daily routine. Why bother tormenting myself by adopting the disciplinary methods my mother-in-law used? That New Year's Eve when I returned to the manor, I forced myself to stick to the rules and stayed up in the ancestral hall until the next day. Right after that, I burned up with a fever so high I didn't know heaven from earth. But Nanny Li knocked on the door in the middle of the night. The Marquis said there is a grand banquet in the residence on the 8th. You must manage it well, do not lose face. I downed a bowl of pain-relieving and fever-reducing decoction, then got up, enduring the pain in my lungs to prepare the bustling festivities for the whole residence. Song Juo was finally satisfied and allowed me to attend the banquet. I continued to play the gentle, virtuous, and uncontentious Marchioness. Song Juo and Lady Li couldn't find a single fault. For a woman, this world is an endless night, a mountain of blades and a sea of fire. I must hide my edge and play the fool, planning my moves gradually. One day, I will establish my own household, and I will see the mid-spring of Zhongyan for myself. As for those medicinal meals, scented powders, sachets, and the like that Song Zhuo presumptuously assumes I made, they were all made by the servants in the manor. Only the medicinal tea came from my own hands. I have grown medicinal herbs since childhood and know a few folk remedies. That medicinal tea is genuine, but several of its ingredients clash with the soothing incense. Taking it daily acts as a contraceptive. But 7 years of this really leaves one heirless. For these 7 years, the Marquise's manor has seen no new births. When I loved Song Zhuo, I doted on those concubine-born children of his, as if they were half my own blood. Now that I don't love him, no one's child is worthy of competing with my son. I am no longer the Ying who worshipped Song Zhuo like a god. Yet he assumes he will always be my god. After taking a risk to help the Guizhou Liang clan conduct private business, I finally won the favor of noble consort Liang. She gifted me gold, gifted me fertile land, and even granted me authority over the Liang family money house. I had both money and power. Now, seizing the momentum, I even got His Majesty to approve the law for establishing independent female households. After the divorce, I no longer need to rely on anyone. 13 a couple of days later, the floating wine cup banquet. Song Zhuo, however, came to pick me up. All the harsh words said before seemed not to count. He was dressed in azure official robes and wore a belt with a 6-ring white jade buckle, standing tall before the temple, like carved jade, cool and noble. Seeing me approach, he said coolly, "You are the Marchioness. I will give you all the dignity you are due." I smiled. Just how great a favor is this? Dignity requiring me to toil like a beast of burden my whole life, yet forbidding me from being a person. Song Zhuo called out. A Ying. My footsteps paused. Aside from Madam or Madam Zhao, he rarely mentions my name anymore, he continued. These past 10 days, without the medicinal meals and lacking the medicinal tea, I've actually grown somewhat unaccustomed to it. Last night's spring snow made me recall the times I bagged fireflies, and studied by the reflection of the snow. Song Zhuo's gaze met the morning light, landing on me with a scattered shimmer. It seemed like he was devoted to me. Yet his stiff back betrayed an attitude of condescension. I went straight up into the luxurious carriage. Song Zhuo lost face, so he stayed silent the whole way. Actually, even if he hadn't come, Consort Liang would have come to fetch me into the palace. For a divorce in a Grand Marquise's household, if the emperor doesn't witness it, there will likely be endless trouble later. The banquet was set in the imperial garden to take advantage of the beautiful spring scenery. Breezy pavilions and waterside terraces, with winding canals for floating wine cups. Amidst the fluttering curtains, amid the bells and feasting, the nobles chatted and laughed. It had an elegant charm, yet didn't lack a sense of grandeur. When the noble families saw us, they came over to flatter. This banquet is set so elegantly, the Yingyuan Marquis manor really knows how to handle things. Madam Song, I heard you were fasting and praying at Qingxi Temple. It must have been hard on you. It is the Marquis who dotes on you, madam, having his concubine take over the duty of arranging the banquet. Song Zhuo responded with a smile, then lowered his head to whisper in my ear. Well, a Ying? Only the Marquise's wife gets treated like the moon surrounded by stars. Why are you still throwing a tantrum? I shot him a glance. Then I turned to find Eunuch Wang, who was in charge, to arrange the seats for the Duke of Ning and his wife. Sister, the Marquise really showed you great mercy by bringing you here. Concubine Li walked up, deliberately cradling her belly that hadn't even started showing yet. Eunuch, the Marquis Manor has entrusted me with arranging these matters now. You don't need to listen to her. Eunuch Wang raised a brow. It is not up to an unregistered concubine like you to boss me around on how I do things. It is your first time helping out in the palace, so you'd best watch yourself. Having said that, he walked away with his head held high, and the few young eunuchs following behind him chuckled in low voices. Concubine Li could only glare at me resentfully. Just wait until my child is born. Then we'll see how securely you sit in your position as mistress. I sized her up with a smile. Oh, Concubine Li actually stepped back with some hesitation. The noble consort and the emperor arrived, and everyone hurriedly took their seats. I slowly picked through and ate the dishes I had carefully selected. In the future, if you want to eat things from the palace, it won't be very possible. Braised shark's fin, 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix, cherry pork, Hennian tribute wine, truly leaving a lingering fragrance on the lips and teeth. When the banquet was at its liveliest, the emperor stopped the music and said, "Zhuo, I never knew before that my dear minister was so magnanimous and broad-minded." Seeing his name called, Song Zhuo hurriedly stepped forward to pay his respects. His Majesty pointed at him and praised, "As a Grand Marquis, you were willing to write the divorce papers and set your wife free." Everyone in the waterside pavilion held their breath. Song Zhuo, standing in the center, froze after a long while. He slowly raised his head, his eyes full of disbelief. The sun had set and the bright moon was just rising. Palace maids approached with lanterns, the lights in the garden stretching for miles. Voices rose all around, eyes burning with intensity. Song Zhuo, standing straight as a pine, trembled slightly at the shoulders. Hard to tell if out of anger or shock. The emperor raised his cup and smiled. We originally thought that a divorce in the Marquis manor was a matter of great importance, requiring careful deliberation. But the noble consort is right. Besides, Marquis Song is so steady and prudent. Since the seal has been set and the divorce papers submitted, it must be the result of long consideration. And since our dynasty has permitted the establishment of female households, we should make our stance clear to the world. The emperor waved his hand. Eunuch Wang brought over a gilded tray. Since my beloved subject is willing to set an example today, we shall certainly agree to this divorce. Not only that, we also bestow a jade rouille upon the Marquise's manor, and bestow upon the Marchioness. No, upon Lady Zhao Ying, 1 taels of gold. I stepped forward gracefully and curtsied, saying neither haughtily nor humbly, "This humble woman, Zhao Ying, thanks your majesty for your great grace." Zhao Ying. A suppressed low growl burst from the mouth of Song Zhuo beside me. Under those wide sleeves, those hands like slender bamboo clenched tightly into fists, veins popping out on the pale backs of his hands. I smiled and looked back at him. Originally a refined figure like snow on distant mountains, isn't he also losing his composure now? Uncontrollably furious. The noble families at the banquet looked at each other in dismay. Just then, His Majesty laughed loudly and raised his cup. "Come, raise your cups." Immediately, everyone instantly plastered smiles on their faces, hurriedly offering toasts, all saying, "Marquis Song has such magnanimity. His Majesty has such foresight. Lady Zhao has such good fortune." Everyone swarmed forward and separated us. Song Zhuo absent-mindedly dealt with Ming's flattery. Across the surging crowd, his shocked and stunned gaze never left me. I calmly raised my cup, and with a smile clinked glasses with the ladies one by one. They spoke of good fortune, but their eyes were full of pity. Poor me with no one to rely on in this life. Drifting like duckweed. But they don't understand. The emperor calls me Lady Zhao Ying. I am no longer Madame Song, the Marchioness, or Zhao of the Song clan. Me, I have a name and a surname. Emptying the cup, pouring another, and another, drinking up this fine wine with abandon, full of joy. From now on, I, Zhao Ying, can ride the wind away or drift away with the current. Ultimately, I am free and at ease. Song Zhuo seized a moment to pull me into the garden's long corridor. The palace lanterns on the eaves were dim. He stared at me with eyes frosted over, sneering coldly. "Zhao Ying, I never knew you had such great ability to pull off such an audacious deception." His grip on my wrist tightened more and more, nearly breaking it. I yanked my hand free and smirked. Before you talk about audacious deceptions, what is the penalty for failing to safeguard one's official seal? Furthermore, the seal is Marquis Song's official seal, and the document was personally authorized by His Majesty. So, tell me exactly what sky was stolen and what sun was swapped. His Majesty spoke in public, so there is no room to reverse the divorce. Song Zhuo suddenly moved closer, looking me up and down. Zhao Ying, you are nothing but a peasant girl. Why are you so scheming? Who taught you such filth? I couldn't help but laugh shrilly. Could it be that in your eyes, I am just a stupid woman who takes her husband as her law? Song Zhuo, back when you took me away, do you still remember what you said? Song Zhuo pursed his thin lips, but couldn't answer. I looked at him. You said, a Ying is bright. If she had studied from a young age, she would surely have placed in the top 3. You also said you would take me to see mid-spring in Zhongnan and the vastness of the northern desert, that you wanted me to be free and carefree. He froze for a long time. Suddenly, his gaze shifted, as if he remembered. The corners of Song Zhuo's eyes were so red they seemed transparent, looking as if he were weeping blood endlessly, on the verge of spilling from his sockets. His lips trembled slightly, forcing himself to look composed. Since you remember everything, why must you be so heartless and divorce me? I never beat or punished you, nor did I scold you. I turned you from a peasant girl into a marchioness. Isn't that enough? Zhao Ying, why are you so greedy and resentful? I covered my mouth with my sleeve and laughed aloud. At first, I foolishly hoped that he would cherish me like a pearl, just as he did in the herb garden. Later, I only hoped he would treat me like a human being. But after all, I am just an object called wife yet. He said I was heartless, greedy, and resentful. My laughter couldn't help but grow louder and louder. Song Zhuo finally lost his composure, filled with anger and hatred. His face flushed red. Eunuch Wang shouted in a shrill voice, Marquis Song, the Emperor awaits. In the distance, a ceremonial procession wound its way toward us. It was the Emperor accompanying noble consort Liang to admire the flowers. Song Zhuo glanced at me, indignant, reluctant to part, and unwilling to accept it. He said, you can still beg noble consort Liang to rescind her order. Don't make a grave mistake. Then he tidied his appearance and strode away. Following Song Zhuo's figure, I arrived before the Emperor. To the side, noble consort Liang, clad in a magnificent purple robe, gazed at me meaningfully. Moonlight like water amidst clusters of flowers and piles of brocade, those beautiful eyes shifted. Amidst the allure, there was a deep, seasoned steadiness. The Empress passed away years ago. She is now the most powerful woman in Deisheng. Beside her, a little girl was pulling at her, pointing at me with a grin. Noble consort Liang revealed a loving smile. This was the noble consort's only child, Princess Anu. Noble consort Liang damaged her health when she gave birth to the princess, leaving her unable to have any more children. She treated the princess like a precious treasure. When I was making medicinal meals to treat Princess Anu's digestion, I had brought up the matter of setting up a female household. I gently rubbed the princess's belly to help her digest, and casually said, if women can set up their own households, earn a living, and pay taxes, it will get rid of the custom in Deisheng of looking down on women. Then I smiled faintly. It wouldn't be impossible for a woman to succeed the Dasheng throne in the future. Presumptuous. Noble consort Liang softly reprimanded me. But as a mother, she plans far ahead for her child. This is a seed, a hope. At the beginning of this year, His Majesty permitted the establishment of female-headed households. I curtsied to the noble consort from a distance, then walked away. It was that bluestone-paved palace path again. The octagonal palace lanterns were like stars in the Milky Way, lighting up this cold path. This time, Song Zhuo didn't walk ahead, and I didn't cry. I walked for a long time, as if I had walked past all the misplaced devotion, insignificance, and dead ends of my 15 years. Finally, I saw the palace gate. I let out a deep breath. Every bone in my body felt 5 mace lighter. I am like a firefly trapped in a brocade pouch, lighting up another's books for 15 years. Now that I have flown out, the world is vast, and I can die without regret. I returned to the manor and went into Yingxiang courtyard to rest. My mother-in-law, Madame Li, charged forward menacingly with a crowd of old maids and servants, raising her hand to slap me. Yor blocked it with all her might. Madame Li bellowed. Men, seize this shrew who wants a divorce. Before the servants could even rush out, the guards behind filed out one by one. Each one was a black-armored guard, carrying a broadsword and wearing an official hat. Everyone instantly went dead silent, taking half a step back. Lady Li was so angry she clutched her chest. You have some nerve. How dare you bring guards and barge into the Marquise's manor? I smiled faintly. Song Lishi, you must be joking. They're just helpers sent by the noble consort to help me move some things. Lady Li's finger, clutching a handkerchief, pointed at me trembling as she gritted her teeth and laughed. When you married into the Marquise's manor with nothing to your name, that was already a heavenly blessing. What could you possibly have to move? I waved my hand with an air of leisurely composure. Yor then handed me a stack of account books. I said, Li Ruhua, you privately lent out usury totaling 10,000 taels, profiting 5,000 taels, and every single transaction is recorded right here. Li Ruhua's eyes widened. You plotted against me, I laughed. Plotting against you would violate the laws of the land. As a law-abiding citizen, I simply must tell the authorities everything I know without reservation. Li Rua thought she had me completely under her thumb long ago, which is why she entrusted these secret dealings to my management. Because of this, I often had to stay up all night balancing the books. If there was a single oversight, she would make me kneel in the Buddhist hall and chant scriptures all day long. I raised my eyebrows and stated clearly, officials engaging in usury shall receive 80 strokes of the heavy bamboo and be stripped of their post. Li Ruhua, if this matter gets out, how will your sky song Zhuo face the world? And how will the Marquise's manor face the world? The dim yellow lanterns under the eaves swayed in the wind. I smiled even more gently. I've labored for years. Would you be so kind as to give me those 10 chests of dowry and the estate in Yuzhou? Let's just consider it a parting gift for our years of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law affection, shall we? Nanny Li rushed forward at that moment, looking fierce as a demon and about to hit me. How dare you? Such a shrew. This old servant will teach you a good lesson for the old madam. Ah, pa! Yor yanked her old arm over and viciously slapped that wrinkled face 5 times in a row. Who are you trying to discipline? You old bag of bones for who? Nanny Li was so shocked she just kept crying. Ah, this old slave overstepped. This old slave overstepped. Stop hitting. Stop hitting. Those loud slaps didn't just land on Nanny Li's face. It was more like they were landing on Li Rua's face. Li Rua was already red-faced with rage, yet she couldn't move a muscle. Yor let go. Nanny Li covered her face with hands trembling like dry branches. Her daughter Qingru hurriedly came over to support her. Mom, I told you that girl is ridiculously strong. The maids and servant boys all took a few steps back the moment they saw Yor's moves. I leaned down and said into Madame Li's ear, whose face was purple with anger. If you are unwilling, the black armor guards are here. A single lawsuit will be sent to the authorities. Li Shi's face was as pale as paper. I asked, Li Rua, how do you choose? Early the next morning, word was sent in advance from the palace that the imperial decree would arrive at noon. I took down my married woman's bun, tied up my hair with a hairpin, and draped a thin green robe over myself. Song Zhuo was already sitting in the main hall. He was still wearing yesterday's official robes. His straight back was slightly hunched, as if he had sat there blankly all night. Song Zhuo was dazed for a moment when he saw me, his fingertips constantly stroking the gilded teacup. Zhao Ying last night. I suddenly dreamed of that bowl of sugar water from 15 years ago. I lifted my eyelids to look at him. The brown sugar water meant to poison my family. I'd set aside a bowl just for Song Zhuo early on. He hadn't had sugar for a long time back then either, so he drank it a bit in a rush. I patted his back while saying goodbye to him. He knew I was going to kill myself. His eyes suddenly turned red, and he cried as he begged me. Don't die, a Ying. I'll save you. 15 springs, summers, autumns, and winters have passed. Yet he brings up the sincerity from the start. Is he worthy? Zhao Ying. Even if we really divorce, where can you go? Song Zhuo's face turned a few shades paler, looking like a rotting log or a withered stump. You and I have spent 15 years together. Your son is also in the manor, and everything you rely on is here. Where will you go? Those deep, lustrous black eyes held a weary cloudiness. I said, I don't need to rely on anyone. From now on, I'll be my own master. At noon, the palace eunuch came to announce the imperial decree. When that shrill voice read out, permission to divorce granted, the last trace of color drained from Song Zhuo's face. He clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white, yet still maintained the dignity of a noble son. But he still said to me in his usual commanding tone, Go beg His Majesty to withdraw the order now. It is not too late. You ought to know without the Marquise's manner. You are nothing. I could even disband the harem for you. I took the imperial decree, my fingertips brushing over the exquisite dragon pattern on it, and nodded slightly. Leaving the Marquise's manor, I am Zhao Ying. I am a human being. Isn't that enough? Leaving the Marquise's manor, I am Zhao Ying. I am a human being, isn't that enough? I turned to leave, but my sleeve was tightly clutched by him. Song Zhuo tore away that layer of noble pretense and roared. Do you hate me this much? Hate me enough to make yourself a lonely outcast just to take revenge on me? I glanced back, my faint smile still gentle, but every word I spoke cut like a knife. The Marquis overstates himself. Revenge? Are you even worth it? His body swayed violently. I gently pulled back my sleeve, my gaze sweeping over this huge Marquise's manor that had trapped me for 15 years. Hold on, hold on. If my Song family produces a divorced woman, what face will we have left? Lady Li walked over, dragging Song Yan along. Good grandson. Come look at your mother. Look how rebellious she is. She wants to divorce your father, and she is bullying your grandmother. Good grandson. Song Yan's face was handsome and calm. He steadily supported Li Rua as he walked over at a leisurely pace. Song Zhuo walked up to Song Yan, feigning dignity, and said, Yan what your grandmother says makes sense. The 14-year-old boy in blue took a step back and bowed to Song Zhuo and Lady Li with perfect etiquette. Father? The emperor personally approved the divorce. The Marquise's manor absolutely cannot go back on it. Now that concubine Li is young, beautiful, and pregnant, there is no need to bother with the Zhao woman. As for my future, I will naturally take the imperial exams seriously and assist the crown prince properly. Surely, it won't be affected by mother. Every word made sense. Every word was measured, and every word was fairly helping me. Song Zhuo was stunned, unable to make a sound. Finally losing his composure, he grabbed me and said, No, Zhao Ying, no. From the moment you saved me, you were meant to be with me for a lifetime. Even if His Majesty allows the divorce, I will still lock you deep inside the Marquis manor. The black armor guard strode forward. The noble consort said, We must escort Lady Zhao Ying out of the manor. Song Zhuo was dazed, then shouted sternly, I am the Marquis of Yingyuan. This is this Marquis's domestic affair. The black armor guard just glanced at him expressionlessly. The Lord Marquis's title is merely ancestral protection, but your official rank is only a mere 4th rank. Speaking of which, that is still 1 rank lower than this general. Do not force this general to report to His Majesty that you are defying a decree. Song Zhuo, who always prided himself on his nobility, looked like his eyes were splitting with rage, yet he didn't make a squeak. Smack! Smack! I raised my hand and slapped Song Zhuo hard twice. His face, usually like cold jade, flushed crimson, utterly shocked. I said coldly, You and I have been husband and wife for 15 years. You took me to run away, and I waited on your entire household. We are even. But thinking about it, you do owe me a life after all. Consider these 2 slaps as repayment. As I turned around, I was startled to find my cheek wet. From now on, you and I are parted by vast skies and endless waters, each to find our own spring. I walked slowly out of the manor gates and boarded the carriage. In the end, I still cast a sideways glance at Song Yan. He was coaxing Madame Li to go inside. How about your grandson goes back to read you a few poems, to help you calm down? Li Ruhua was reluctantly led away by Song Yan. Just as the young man's figure was about to vanish through the floral pendant gate, he finally looked back at me. His gaze was burning. Leaving the Yingyuan Marquis Manor was a tacit agreement between mother and son to each pursue our own future. Since he was little, Song Yan was very much like I was in my childhood, climbing trees to catch birds, naughty and mischievous. Wild and unrestrained, he wasn't very well liked by everyone in the manor. 7 years ago, the then-favored concubine, Liu, scolded me right in front of 7-year-old Song Yan. Song Yan was so angry he lunged forward and scratched the concubine, only to be pinched black and blue by her nanny. For the first time, I exercised my authority as the mistress and punished concubine Liu, who was supposed to serve Song Zhuo that night, by sending her to the Buddhist hall to reflect. Because of this, Song Zhuo stripped off my outer robe and threw me out of the manor gates, and Song Yan was sent to the old madam's courtyard. Under the corridor in the 12th lunar month, day after day, he stood there braving the wind and snow as punishment, unable to enter the room to warm himself by the fire until Madame Li nodded. No night, he climbed over the wall to see me. His hands were covered in chilblains, his ears were swollen, and his knees were scraped raw and bloody from the punishment of kneeling. Seeing that I was still ill, he, who was always laughing and joking, suddenly burst into loud wails and threw himself to my bedside with his lame leg. Me heart ached so much, it felt like a piece was missing. I cupped his scarred hands and urged him, Yan, if you want a good life in the future, you must please grandmother and please father. Mother is always thinking of you, but we must take this slowly. You mustn't act as recklessly as you did before. He took it to heart, even though tears streamed down his face and he turned bright red. He clenched his teeth and didn't make another sound. Later, by unspoken agreement, the two of us stopped being close in front of others. The once rash and cheerful Song Yan became reticent and well-behaved. He finally won the favor of Lady Li and Song Zhuo. I curried favor with the uninfluential Lady He of the Duke of Ning's estate. Not long after, a great scholar from her maternal family happened to meet Song Yan in a temple, struck up a connection, and came to the residence to tutor him. As early as half a year before the selection for the Crown Prince's study companion, the noble consort had already introduced Song Yan to the Crown Prince. As a mother, I also planned far ahead for him. Since Song Yan couldn't receive any genuine doting affection from his father and grandmother, then he would tread upon the Marquise's manor, ascend the jade and golden steps, and soar straight up 90,000 lian. My birthday this year, Song Yan ran into my courtyard. I was just about to say, "Don't let anyone see." Song Yan was already so excited that his eyes were filled with tears. It took him a long while to find his voice. "Mother," the Crown Prince stepped in, and His Majesty finally approved the Guizhou Liang clan's petition. Women are allowed to set up their own households. I drank several cups of cold tea before I finally caught my breath. Song Yan showed a sincere smile, slowly half-kneeling before my knees. Looking up at me adoringly, tears suddenly slid down the young man's cheeks. His clear voice trembled. "Mother, you can go. You can walk out of the Marquise's manor with your head held high." After saying this, his hand trembled for a long time before carefully holding my hand. It has been a long time since I've been close to him. The intricate window lattice shattered the sunset, casting it between him and me. The young man's eyes were as brilliant as the sun and moon. He is the person who loves me the most in this life. I kept wiping away the teardrops with my sleeve. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wipe them all away. In the end, I held his hand back and sobbed quietly. He has his own smooth path ahead. I have my own path ahead as well. Our time as mother and son ends here. From now on, we go our separate ways. Under the arrangements of the Liang clan of Guizhou, that carriage evaded all eyes and ears. heading all the way south, settling down in Zhengyan. That place held the properties of noble consort Liang's maternal family, and I had to help manage them. The Liang family all backed the eldest legitimate grandson. I had to help her secure a foothold. She was guarding against losing favor as her beauty faded, and against being abandoned by the family. Once everything became familiar, I passed the news of concubine Li's adultery to Li Ruhua, and threatened her into giving me a property in Zhongnan. The money was a small matter. Making sure she had no peace was the big one. The Li clan of Yuzhou was also her sky. Niece Li Qing'er was far along in her pregnancy, making it difficult to abort. Once that child is born, Li Rua's face would be trampled into the mud. How could she not be terrified? Song Yan sent a letter, sending greetings and reporting that he was safe. They mentioned that Song Zhuo was always sending people to ask about my whereabouts, often drinking in my room until he passed out. One time, drinking caused a mishap. He breached etiquette before the throne, which led to him being transferred to garrison Mobe, and his life became much harder. But my life truly became happy. I bought a small 3-courtyard house. I had Yuer, a loyal servant, as well as a few capable page boys and maids. Once the great heat arrived, I had Yuer buy ice, make iced yogurt and cut watermelon. As soon as autumn arrived, I had people beat down osmanthus flowers, brew rice wine, and steam osmanthus cakes. Come the start of winter, I had people pickle vegetables and warm the wine, while I warmed myself by the fire and read storybooks every day. Living it up. Just living it up. And in the blink of an eye, it was New Year's Eve. That concubine Liuer, who had been sold off, braved the light snow to bring me a steamer of dumplings. She smoothed the stray hairs at her temples, smiling a bit shyly. Mistress, Lady Zhao looks to be in the prime of her youth. Perhaps things have been going very smoothly for her these days. Liuer's 25-year-old face already looked somewhat desolate. Before leaving the Marquise's manor, she had endured 3 years of bullying from concubine Li. And Song Zhuo was of noble birth and used to being indifferent. Naturally, he wouldn't offend a noble concubine for the sake of the servant-born Liuer. Liuer had been pampered for a few years, so when she suddenly suffered such torment, she tried to jump into a well. I saved her. I gave her a plate of dumplings and a deed of indenture. She kowtowed 3 times loudly. Bang, bang, bang. Her forehead swelled red instantly, tears and snot streaming down. You really are a good person. I used to throw my weight around like that. Yet, you actually don't hate me, and even saved me. I never hated her. What is there to hate? If I had been sold to a 60-year-old man as a concubine back then, my situation probably would have been the same. That divorce paper stamped with Song Zhuo's official seal was secretly stamped by Liuer, while she and Song Zhuo were entangled in the study. If this matter is thoroughly investigated later, Liuer will have been sold off anyway, so Song Zhuo will have no way to track her down. I had Yuer warm up some yellow wine, then serve the dongpo pork, sweet and sour fish, and crab soup dumplings that had been prepared early on. The 3 of us ate and drank while admiring the falling snow. The snow in Zhongyan melts away as soon as it lands. It is not like in the capital where it falls and falls until the drifts are deep. Just like that, the past 15 years seem to have melted away. I no longer have to endure the wind and snow, no longer have to suffer scorn, no longer have to be a mere thing. I am Zhao Ying. I am a woman. I am a human being. We drank until we were tipsy and slurring our words, then rolled ourselves up in the bedding and nestled on the couch. Never again do I have to stay up until dawn keeping vigil for a hall full of ancestral tablets that aren't even my kin. Once the first lunar month passes, spring begins, day after day, spring after spring. When I turned 35, Yan passed the imperial exams. Li Rua had passed away long ago, wasted away to skin and bones by the time she died. As for Song Zhuo, he fell ill and never recovered. It was only because, having just managed to get reinstated to his official post with great difficulty, he learned that his youngest son wasn't his own. I had specifically spent a fortune hiring a tutor to teach that child, which was the only reason he gradually won Song Zhuo's favor. Only when affection runs deep does one know the bitterness. The moment this scandal was exposed, Li Qing'er burst out laughing. She pointed at Song Zhuo and cursed, "If you weren't so useless, good for nothing but looks and unable to father children, why would I have had to borrow someone else's seed? You incompetent man. Stop pretending to be so high and mighty. Stop acting so tough." Song Zhuo buried Li Qing'er and the young child deep in the mountains. Later, he was sick for several days, then suddenly became paralyzed. In his letter to me, Song Yan wrote, "Song Zhuo constantly mutters my name, and he keeps saying if only he could start over with me, start over. I have already started a new life, and I am living it beautifully." On the day Song Zhuo died, Jinyu Pavilion sent over the 10 best pieces of jewelry for me to pick from, just as they did every month. It was a bright, sunny spring day, and the grass was lush and green. In the gilded tray, a piece of white jade, lustrous and flawless, glowed with a gentle sheen, catching my eye in an instant. When I picked up the jade pendant, my fingertips still ended up trembling a couple of times. Carved on it was the character Song. This was the ancestral jade pendant Song Zhuo pawned back when he took me to run away from home. Song Zhuo used to often cherish it, fiddling with it in his palm, saying it was what his father left him before he died. Later, he pawned it to save me. After going round and round, this jade has returned to my hands. Truth be told, if it weren't for Song Zhuo, I would have long since entered the cycle of reincarnation. Don't know if it is a boy or a girl, if it is pain or pleasure, if it is sorrow or joy. Today, the spring sunshine is so lovely. The spring scenery so beautiful. I was so happy, I actually shed a tear.